Well, hi everyone. Thanks again for listening to the AAPI Go podcast. This is episode 2 of season 2, and with me today we have our very special guest, TS. Say hi,
Hey guys.
and Eugene.
Hey, everyone.
All right. Well, yeah, we're missing a couple of the crew this week, but definitely wanted to kind of get out there and talk about the elephant in the room, which is the an extremely tragic shooting in Texas this past week. As many of you know, probably 19 children lost their lives in what's basically the worst mass shooting since Newtown and Sandy Hook. So, really, not much more to say other than that. Then, our hearts go out to the families, and we really want to focus on, you know, possible solutions or talking about, ways we can move this forward in the wake of this tragic event. Initial thoughts, guys?
Well, I mentioned it last time when we talked about the Buffalo shooting, but there's always clues and things that kind of pop up um, that really should have been like a clear and present warning to the feds to do something about this, and like always, nothing. Um,
I think he was
I
arrested when he was
haven't.
like 14 for making
Yeah,
threats too.
yeah, and I think I want to. I also want to preface it with this: what he did was an absolutely horrid act that is so unspeakably evil. It's not even something that you want to think about. It's one of those things that strike at the heart of fear of every parent, every person who has like ever worked with or raised or watched over children. And the fact that someone was capable of such dark brutality is it's concerning to the highest level. But because of the gravity of this, I think so many people have really strong feelings to the point where they're not willing to kind of go about this a like like a debate. For a lot of people, it's this is what it is and that's it. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, this has fueled their kind of anti-gun rhetoric and their anti-gun stances to overdrive, and it's really upsetting, not just as a gun owner, but just seeing this like discourse and this like huge clash between ideologies on what people think the solution is. Um, it's just it's so maddening, and not only is the act itself of what happened despicable, but the response from the authorities at the time was a grand showing of such sheer incompetence that it makes you think, is there anyone in that town, bar the victims and people related to the victims, that actually cared about what happened in that school? And from the way that the local police department there handled it, it doesn't look like it. And that is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I mean, something like 40 minutes of waiting outside the school, allegedly. There's
Yeah, they
videos going
wasted
around
golden
of.
hour.
Yeah, there's like parents of them like tackling parents who were trying to get in and tasing one person. I mean, I think at the end it was like I had heard that the Customs and Border Patrol agents were the only ones who like initially breached it after that 40-minute wait. They were ignoring all the orders from the local authorities before anything was
yeah,
done. I mean, and that's just the most maddening part to me as a parent to think something like that could happen. I mean, I just bought like body armor for my daughter's backpack, and it's like, how do you explain this level of evil to a 9-year-old?
Yeah, and I think no matter what side of the fence you're on, whether you're pro gun or anti gun, I think giving props to that one off-duty border patrol officer who risked his life and abandoned his fear to rush into that school to stop evil, I think deserves everyone's praise. Like he did what others were not willing to do, and in fact, what the others there were trained to do but refused to. I don't know if it was mentioned, but um, the Uvalde Police Department had done active shooter training and drills. They were trained for this. They were specifically geared to help prevent this. And in fact, in their training manual, in their official documents, it states that the lives of the innocent and the lives of those you have sworn to protect in this community hold greater value than yours, and that you should be willing to jump into the line of fire to protect them. And if this is something that you cannot or will not do, you should find a different career.
So, I'm just gonna add to that, Eugene. Um, so, like, as a former first responder, that's exactly on point. Like, I mean, there was a saying that we used to say is, you know what you signed up for. While I wasn't exactly a police officer, I mean, it still stands true. Like, the fact that there's two things, right? Like, one thing is, I come at it from the perspective of, the school. Like, I mean, the door was open, you know, like the back door was left open. I mean, that was ridiculous. Not only that, I think it was like 30 minutes before the person was posting stuff online. So kind of to piggyback off of what you said, Eugene, like, it's just, again, there were so many signs, and they're just all ignored. And I think it just further drives home the point. Like, I come from the perspective, I know it might be a little extreme for you guys, but I come from the perspective of, I'm at the point where we're seeing so much of this that it's like the people, the powers that be, kind of want to use the hysteria to do a power grab. Because that's kind of what it is. It's like, do something, and it's like, take more rights away. I mean, you kind of see this in other countries, right? We've seen this in New Zealand, we've seen this in the UK, we've seen this in Australia, Canada, and like, it doesn't stop because people keep on going. Like, there's always going to be crazy people. Like, I think there could be a balance of, let's actually solve this problem. If these countries didn't solve the problem, like, they still have shootings and killings, right? They'll just sensationalize. They did pick and choose what they want to essentially sensationalize, right? And they use the media to do that. So obviously it's a sad thing, but I think, like, the powers that be are using it in such a negative way, and it's like, yo, this is not constructive. Like, let's just really figure out how to solve this problem. And I think Wednesday, I think a few days, I don't know if it was before or after, like, there was a woman, you guys actually posted it on social media. There was a woman who actually stopped a gentleman who had an illegal AR-15, and she was a legal CCW holder, or she was able to legally carry. I don't know if it was she had a CCW or what exactly she had, but she took him down. So essentially there would have been another mass quote unquote shooting, but someone, they took it upon themselves. Like, it's a huge responsibility to carry a gun, and that person, like, it was a woman. I don't know. I think she might have been a little older, but we don't really have the details yet. But like, she took the person down, and like, back to what you guys were saying, I think the person was like it's a unit called BORTAC, which is like the quote unquote special forces of Border Patrol. Yeah, I mean, like, he did, like, as a former first responder, there are certain things that, like, you're trained to do, and like, when things happen, like, some things just kick in. It's like instinctual. So he did what he was trained to do, and of course I commend him for it. And it's disgusting that I think a lot of that stuff could have been avoided, if they would have just went in. I mean, they knew he was there because they were engaging with him beforehand, right? Like, I think the guy he posted on social media. He unfortunately committed a bad act to his grandmother. Unfortunately, there were obviously signs beforehand, right? But like they were chasing him. They chased him into this like I don't know, something about it just seems really fishy to me. I mean, that's just me
Yeah.
though.
And speaking on like the weirdness of this incident, like if you look at the equipment that he used and like the things that he brought, first of all, the rifle that he used is not a cheap rifle. It's not something you can afford, on like a minimum wage salary.
I mean, he could have stole it,
Yeah, he was
like
like
money from his grandma.
That's true.
That too. That's
Or a credit card or
but
something, but
but for him to have done this within the time frame of like everything going on, and even if he did like take the money from his grandmother, like his family was in no place to have such savings when he was being bullied for essentially not being able to afford like clothing. Anyways, it just like he had a almost $3,000 rifle with a $700 optic, 1,600 rounds of ammunition, which 5.56 isn't cheap nowadays.
and it's
Like
somewhat
it's
more
one of
difficult
the
to find too.
yeah, it's one of the more expensive cartridges to buy. And he had over 1,000 rounds of it, which adjusting for regional differences in cost, you're still looking at like not exactly, but close to $1 a round. Then there's the fact that he had, what was it, like over 50 magazines, which aren't exactly cheap either.
Wait, let's take a step back. You're saying this person was bullied because his family was in poverty and he didn't, wasn't able to clothe himself? And this is factual. Like we have.
Plus, he had like some kind of a stutter or something like that, and like came from a broken home. Is like
Well, yeah,
allegedly,
that
like, there's like
right,
a quote
but
from his mom out there saying like, "Don't judge my son. He had his reasons," which obviously complete bullshit. But it's kind of like, well, you've got shitty parents, shitty outcomes sometimes.
well, yeah. I mean, I don't mean to harp on the socioeconomic background of the person, but I mean, is that confirmed? Because if that is confirmed, we're talking like how much money would you say, Eugene? We're talking like what, $5,000-$6,000, not including the illegal pistol.
In total,
yeah,
you're looking at least 6,000 to 7,000.
That's insane for someone who we have confirmed background that the person didn't have money to buy. The person was like dressing disheveledly because his family was struggling financially. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, and we could really just go on about all the ways that this incident just doesn't seem right, but I think until all of like the facts come, because even now there's pieces of information even from the police themselves that they've redacted and retracted and tried to rectify because they got caught on their bullshit, but there's still a bunch of information that's yet to come out that would give a better idea of everything going on. But
for sure,
it still boils down to the fact that he was able to enter this school through an open door that someone had left propped open. And if I remember reading correctly, there were some reports that he was even like shooting outside the school, trying to find a way in. Which, I don't know about you guys, but at the schools where, I used to go, if there was like any kind of gunshot or bomb threat, even like in the next district over, all the local schools immediately went to lockdown. Outside doors locked up, all of the inside doors closed. No one is allowed outside the building, and the only way in is to get like allowed in from the front security office. Where the fuck was that for this school? It's ridiculous.
I mean, I feel like we kind of sound like conspiracy theorists here, but I mean, these are
Not
like
me.
some.
Let's make that totally clear. I'm just
it's
listening.
just
I'm along
T.
for the ride here.
It's
I'm
just
letting you
T.
go.
It's just TS and Eugene, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Scott is a conspiracy-free zone.
Yeah,
I will
but
admit, though, it is a little odd, though, that I mean, just given the price tag of the equipment he used, it I mean, something doesn't really add up about that, other than him possibly, knocking off Granny and stealing her credit card or something. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I have
but
to admit that's odd, and the police behavior is completely
mm,
odd. Like restraining
and
parents, that's just like I don't know.
yeah, it's one of those. It's one of these situations in which everything that happened is either a result of something malicious going on in the background, something that feeds in conspiracy theories, or just like sheer incompetence to a level unseen before that should
Eugene,
result.
hey Eugene,
Yeah,
can you clarify where you think the incompetence is coming from, so our listeners know?
yeah. So let me say it for the record: the incompetence of the police department, the incompetence of the school's response, the initial response, not even the initial response, like the fact that someone just propped the door open. Like, I'm sorry if the person who had propped it open is you know coming under so much guilt right now. But you have to realize that these policies exist for a reason. And because of this lapse in policy, and then the failure of the police department, and then the the failure of the responders on site to do anything, resulted in the deaths of these children.
Yeah.
Either the authorities and the feds didn't do their job after this guy was arrested, 4 years ago, for threatening to shoot up his school and not put on some kind of watch list. Like, I get it, not everything you say online is should be taken at face value. There's definitely a lot of shit that I say in a sarcastic tone.
Right, but you're not threatening to harm people, man.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm not, and I
And the
haven't been
cops never showed up to
arrested.
investigate
Yeah,
you either.
yeah, I never had to go out in cuffs because of something I said. If I did, then rightfully, whatever I said, I should probably be under surveillance and have to explain my actions.
Well, and that's the thing that I just I don't get about like that consistent pattern with all of these mass shooters. I mean, the FBI has a clear profile of it. In these last two, both kids were arrested. I mean, is it like the incompetence of law enforcement just not reporting it to a database where NICS can find it out so they get denied a background check? Or is it just like you're on a watch list, but that doesn't automatically put you on a blacklist when someone's doing a background check through NICS or something? Like, that's something I would love to understand.
Yeah, it's it just boggles my mind and it infuriates me to no end. Um, just how
Yeah.
how terribly everything fell apart.
I mean, like, all right, so this might sound like a conspiracy theory, but there's new information. I'm sure you guys heard, with regards to the Buffalo incident, where they found out that there's a former Fed officer who was talking to the guy for a week or two.
Yeah, that apparently both the Buffalo and the Texas shooter were members of the same Discord server, and within
Right.
that Discord server, there's
Like,
also allegedly a former federal agent that had been talking to them both quite frequently.
yeah, so like it's stuff like that that kind of makes you wonder. Like, people are like, oh, well, people aren't doing their jobs, but I'm just like, well, yeah, no comment. Like,
Yeah, if this is the result of people not doing their jobs, and your immediate response is to say, well, then let's take away the ability of anyone to protect themselves. Great. Not only have you made a soft target even softer, but now you've removed any possibility for people to be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, and
You
that's
know,
the thing that because I mean, it's like you're absolutely right. It's like the reaction is we want the people who were too incompetent to rush the school to be the only people with AR-15s. It's like that just like doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if they're scared of that gun and they're trained to,
and they have armor.
SWAT tactics to get in and they have body armor, Like, and you're telling me we're supposed to be trusting our lives to these people who are, on a good day, 7 minutes away. If you call from your house to say that somebody's in the, you know, robbing me, I mean, are they just going to sit outside and wait for me and my entire family to get murdered before they go
Exactly.
in? It's like, what the
Exactly.
fuck?
Yeah, the idea that the only response to this tragedy is to punish law-abiding gun owners and make it harder for them to defend themselves. I mean, even the border patrol agent that had breached the school and confronted the shooter and finally put a stop to this fucking nutbag. He didn't apparently even use his own gun. He was at, what was it, a barber nearby when he
Oh,
got
yeah.
word of it, and he, borrowed the barber's gun, drove to the school, put on his kit, and breached the building. It wasn't the fact that the cop had a gun. No, the cop had a gun that he got from a from a law-abiding gun owner.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, and honestly, as a parent, that's the thing that's just like so maddening to me. I mean, I would like to think that if I got a call from my school, there's an active shooter scenario. First thing I'm going to do is grab my AR, and I'm sorry, the cops can fucking shoot me in the back on my way in there if they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, it's
really
there's so
sad.
many there's so many solutions that can make schools and other places that have been historically soft targets much more difficult for monsters to try and attack.
Yeah, and that's the thing that just always gets me too, because I mean, it's like everybody's so polarized. Like, Ted Cruz got widely mocked in media for recommending just that, like hardened school targets, make one entrance going in, and give teachers the option to get a CCW permit if they want to. I mean, there's like nothing wrong with that in my opinion. And then on the left, it's just like, okay, we need to ban assault weapons right away. No ands, ifs, or buts, and eventually just get rid of all guns because, hey, that worked in Australia, a country that doesn't have 400 million guns to begin with, or 15 million AR-15s. So to me, it's like, any solution that's calling for a ban is a complete non-starter. But I mean, I would be interested in figuring out some kind of a solution to. I mean, I know red flag is a loaded term, but if somebody's clearly like been on police's radar and they've been arrested and their social media chatter, like, I mean, sorry, you lose your gun rights until you're 25 and cleared by a psychologist, in my mind. And that to me is like, that's a targeted response to the actual problem, not like a blanket solution saying that, okay, the 15 million, well, probably, sorry, 14,999,099 people who are not violent murderers, that's not going to impact them. That's a very targeted solution just to an individual who's met a certain set of requirements, i.e., being an asshole, i.e., making threats, i.e., trying to buy a gun. They should get denied. And just that person.
I mean, Scott, like I hear you, but I think even a more, I hate this term, and I'm sure you guys cringe when you hear it. Common sense. A more, yeah, yeah.
The
Uh,
pain.
I know. I'm sorry, but like, I think the most, you don't even need to pass a law. Stop wasting tax dollars. This is just implement the standard. Like if someone's writing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do XYZ, and they're making threats online, I mean, take a look at them. Like this is like, you don't even need to, have people sit down and do like honestly, that is really just, it's a pony show in my opinion. I don't even know if that's the right term, but like at this point, the federal government shouldn't even be getting involved. It's like, if these police officers really, again, like, well, I think we all know that the federal government has already, in the U.S., the courts have ruled that the police, in various departments do not have the obligation to save an individual's specific life, right? They're for community, quote unquote, protection, right? That being said, like, we already know that they're monitoring us online, right? due to the Patriot Act, right, to a degree.
Right.
I
So
mean,
it's like, why not use that data for somebody who's actually making a credible
right.
threat and
I
arrest
mean,
them? It's like
which
if they were a brown person threatening to blow up a building, the FBI would be at their house in like 5 minutes.
I mean, yeah, I know
So
you didn't mean
what's
to. I
the
mean, it doesn't
disconnect
even matter
here?
about the color. It doesn't even really matter
Yeah.
about their skin color or what they're. I mean, if you're making threats to do like to blow something up, this and that, like keep an eye out. Like, hey, I mean, they in New York City, they're working with the AFT is working with the NYPD. The most gun controlled city, one of the most. You're able to do that. You're telling me that you didn't know? You didn't know? Like, come on. This is
Yeah.
like, this is like borderline. I mean, again, I don't want to sound like quote unquote conspiracy theorist, this and that, but like this is derelict of duty. Like they knew what was going on, and they completely dropped the ball, and people should be fired, in my opinion.
And it's like 2 weeks in a row too. I mean, like obviously this one like hit way harder than I mean. I hate to say it, but this one like hit me really hard because I can empathize. I've got a 9-year-old. I can just I bawled when I saw some of the parent interviews.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like the week before that in Buffalo, same exact profile. Guy already threatened. He spent time in a mental institution and got released. And it's like somehow this info isn't getting into the next database. It's like, what's going on?
And you know what?
Yeah.
I just want to put this out there. Like, I know mental health has a stigma, but like, and just because you've had a past with mental health, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have your rights. But if you're making threats in such a close time period, that someone needs to sit down with that person, just have a conversation with them. Like it's one thing to like, okay, listen, you had a mental breakdown, right? But again, if they're it's like, I think this is just getting ridiculous. It's like, again, these people. I think these politicians are really just using people at this point, to just pass legislation. And again, I'm trying to reserve myself right now. But
Yeah. And just like you, Scott, this also hit me personally. My longtime partner and girlfriend, she teaches at an elementary school. And like when I heard this happen, it just reignited like every fear I had in my body about, her being there. It was like, if I was in that exact same situation, how would I come to terms with that? How do I face that and come out the other side, the same person? I'm not. It's going to destroy me. It's going to destroy everyone involved. And so that's why my heart breaks for the families that were involved in this. And they're not part of this episode, and we're not really sponsored by them or anything. But I urge anyone who may be looking, especially if you're a gun owner, who may be struggling with some rather unhappy thoughts and may have some concerns about themselves. Our friends over at Walk the Talk USA, they have been doing so much work for gun owners across America, dealing with these things that plague their mind. It's a dark time, and unfortunately, we as a nation can't decide on a single solution because there really is not a single solution. And the solutions that do exist either are easy, so to say, but trample on the rights of what makes us American.
well, I wouldn't even
Or,
say that's a solution. I wouldn't even say that's a solution, Eugene.
yeah, you're right.
It's not a solution.
It's not.
It's not.
But yeah, it's. I'm going to end my thoughts with this.
Go ahead.
We have armed security and metal detectors at concerts. We have police presence at fairs and at other junctions or at other places where people gather. Celebrities. The mayor has armed guards. Why should our children, why should teachers have any less protection than a concert venue, than the mayor, than any other instance in which there is an armed presence to protect whatever's going on there? Why is it we're so against, police who should do their jobs, who should be willing to lay down their life for their community, or even have a specific person assigned to protect that school? If you think that every other cop or every other officer is going to be the exact same as the ones in Uvalde, then stop going out to places. Don't go to concerts. Don't go to sporting events. Don't go see the fucking mayor. Because apparently you think that they value everyone's lives as much or as the same as everyone else's. And that's a really unfortunate thought, and I hope you get help for that. But you got to draw the line there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna add to that. Like, I know you said mayor. Well, it's not just the mayor, man. I mean, just for general politicians in the U.S., right? Like, and I mean, I've had people reach out to me, like from other countries that were talking, and like some of them don't understand like the U.S. culture, but I think it's something to think about. Like, and I mean, now we're seeing like a barrage of, because we're in an information war, right? Like, there's a lot of information out there. We're like just trying to sway people, but it's really true. Like, people don't comprehend. Like, like if someone wants to, they're on the fence about just in general about what stuff that we're talking about, right? Like, listen, the Second Amendment was made for, to fight against tyrannical governments, to ensure that governments do not trample on our God-given rights. Full stop, right? That's why it was written. And people are always trying to challenge it, right? But like, they don't realize that, like you said, the mayor, like literally, let's look at New York City, right? New York City, the whole state, New York State, you have Illinois, right? Those two states right there. From bottom to top to bottom, all the politicians have armed security, right? They have security, police, all being paid for by tax dollars, right? Max gun control, right? New York City had in the 90s, right? They had a AR ban, right? Assault weapons ban, right? Confiscated, right? They had a registry. They went and they confiscated everything. Didn't solve anything, right? So, I mean, and like you said, again, like I'm at again, from what it seems like, I think people need to understand is that these people don't care. Like, the politicians, they don't care. If I know, Eugene, you said your significant other is a teacher, and I don't know what the laws are in her locality, but if she can, she should be able to carry. It's not right. Like, there should be some sort of arms. I don't have any children, Scott. I know you do, but like, I would want my child to be, to have that protection. They're always talking about the children. We care about the children, but yet, their actions don't show it. So again, like you guys said, it's you have concerts have muscle, armed security, bars even, banks have them. Everything that we quote unquote value.
Weed dispensaries.
Hmm?
No, weed dispensaries. I mean, like
Yeah.
I do not know because of reasons, but I have
You've heard.
I've
Right.
heard tell that there are armed guards.
I mean, hell, there was that video a while ago of a weed dispensary in California that got robbed, and the guard there, like, he fought back.
Oh yeah. You guys posted that on social media. I remember that video. Yeah, no, but I mean, but that's the whole thing. It's like, you guys care so much about these other things, and you cry and scream, the children, just take the guns. No, full stop. No. If the politicians are using our tax dollars to protect themselves, why is it that they're not using that money to do the same for the kids? It really, again, I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's really starting to, I think people just need to ask these kind of questions. Like these questions are not being answered. I mean, they're not being asked by the same people who like. And I know we're trying to reach an audience that is not in our kind of bubble, so to speak. So it's like, guys, just like really think about that. You know, ladies, gentlemen, genderless gingerbread cookies. Like really, like however you define yourself, just really think about that. You know, it's like why is it that all these people in government who are literally surrounded by armed security, secret service, police, they're you literally like they don't like according to the courts. Again, we said earlier, according to the federal courts, police are not obligated to protect individuals, but they're getting that preferential treatment. They're getting that special treatment, but yet they're not doing it for the kids. It's almost like they're setting it up. And again, I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, and maybe I'm taking it too far by saying that. Scott, if you want to edit it out, you're more than welcome to.
No, I don't mind, honestly, but
no. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I mean, it's something to really like. It's making me question, like, as we're talking it out, like it's almost as if they want to use people's knee-jerk reaction emotions to ban stuff and to take away rights.
Yeah,
and it's like,
well, and the thing that I just don't get about that is like, okay, banning it for every person doesn't make sense to me, but like maybe a reasonable argument could be had to blocking
like someone who was arrested for making a school shooting threat.
Well, yeah, guys, exactly. hold on. Wait, can you repeat that again?
Oh, well, I think what we were saying is like, okay, why is the focus on banning it for everyone when the issue is mentally disturbed 18-year-olds with police records?
For sure, like, I mean, but yeah, for sure, like, at least you know, keep an eye on that person at the very least, you know, like keep an eye out. But like, again, that wasn't even done, you know? So it's, again, it's like, for me, my spidey sensors are like, what's going on, you know? Something doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and you know, because of her, you know, closeness to everything related. My girlfriend and I were talking about it, and you know, of course, we've been together for a while, and we're very serious about each other. And we're talking like in the future, or with our children, like what's our plan for that? And you know, I fully intend that, like, no matter where we send our kids, I'm going to grill that district and what they're doing to protect our children there. Do you have proper security protocols in place? Do you have a way to keep the doors locked? Do you have someone on site that can respond immediately to any threat? If you don't, I'd be more than happy and willing to do that. Because there's no way in hell I'm going to let anything happen to my kids.
I mean, not only you, but I'm sure that, like, almost any retired veteran would probably volunteer to just do that for 8 hours a day at almost any school district.
I mean, I've been seeing a lot of things on social, like videos and stuff. Like, people do offer their time, man. You know, it's like people are doing it, and I think if anyone who's retired, you know, first responder, former military, if you can do it, hey, you know, we'd appreciate it. I mean, even if you're don't have that background and you're retired and you're just got some time on your hands, I mean, feel free to reach out to your the local schools in your area. I mean, we'd appreciate it. I mean, because at the end of the day, like, it seems like a lot of the government. I mean, again, I don't mean to sound like I'm definitely not anti-government, but my response to this is that a lot of the institutions in place have just been breaking their promises. So it's like, it's up to us to kind of really, you know, just, you know, they've pretty much failed. So it's like, all right, well, why we should just step up and do our best. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Hanlon's razor, you know, says, don't attribute malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity, in a certain sense, for me.
It's a very good point.
Yeah. You know, it's like, I mean, it's easy to say conspiracy theory, but I just think it comes down to incompetence and agencies not talking to each other when they clearly should be.
Yeah.
And we know they're talking to each other. Like we definitely know they're talking to each other, but
I
it's
don't know
like,
that they're talking to each other because I mean, I just remember like, I mean, this is gonna date me here, but like, I remember after 9/11, the biggest thing was agencies weren't talking to each other because they had this sort of like the wire on HBO esque system of it's like, oh, the feds are going to get credit for this. We don't want to give them credit for, booking this terrorism case. And then the local authorities are like, oh shit, we're on the middle of a terrorist, cell here flying planes in Florida. We don't want to give the feds credit for that. And then it's just like, they don't cooperate because everybody wants to be the person to, be GI fucking Joe and win the case, and then nothing gets done.
well, I mean, I think like I was mentioning before, like we know. I mean, maybe they're not directly talking to each other all the time, but they do though. I mean, New York City is an example. I mean, they were working with the ATF. I think even Chicago has ATF people on the ground. So it's not like they don't know. I mean, they do.
Well, it's like they know, but it like somehow doesn't get reported to NICS, the background check database or something, because it's like you would hope that if they are talking to each other, then local law enforcement would report it somewhere, and then that gets flagged, and all of a sudden that person gets denied when they're trying to purchase a firearm. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would be interested to get your perspective as a first responder. I mean, how many credible threats do you get over 911 about
I mean
things like
that's
that?
the but see, this is what I think. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Scott, because it's something that I was thinking about prior to the podcast, right? So I worked in the street and I worked at communications, right? So I got to see both. So here's the thing. I think the question that I have now is, did anyone call 911 when this is public record, right? So did anyone call 911 when they saw his post, right?
Yeah,
Because
or like,
because
I mean, should
that's so.
Facebook be obligated to call 911 if they see that? You know?
Well, so here's the thing, because you asked me that question, right? So you would get calls for people who would say, I'm trying to harm myself, I want to harm anyone else. We would get calls for that. And, you know, resources would be sent there, right? To that location. So that's a huge, as a former first responder, that's a huge, huge red flag. Someone saying, I'm going to kill, my grandma, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to do that. If they're saying that, like, how did they, I'm guessing they kind of knew, or maybe it might have, only based on the timeline, because we know the person, they unfortunately did what they did to their grandmother, and then there was a police chase. So I'm guessing they did hear about it. Um, but yeah, like, I mean, that would be my thing. It's like, if they heard about it, the whole thing just, again, like I said, man, like my spidey senses are just all over the place, because a lot of things just didn't add up. Like, again, it's protocol. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm sure some cities have different protocols, but it's my understanding that 911, if they were called, they would have sent people. Yeah, they would have sent resources to that person. That's something that no questions asked would have been done, based on my, again, I was not a cop, but based on my experience, that's what happens. So again, we don't have all the information yet, right? Um, but yeah, it hurts. It's very sad. It's just, and I think, again, as a former first responder, I can't tell you how many times we've gotten calls for people, where people, thankfully they were not in this kind of situation, but their lives are being threatened. In my
Yeah.
opinion, first responders are great, right? They're great. They're supposed to be doing a thankless job, but they're your backup. you have to be your own first responder. And I know that might be hard to hear, but I think that's something that I cannot emphasize enough. Like, be your own first responder. They're your backup. They're your backup. And that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like I was saying earlier, it's just like the whole wait 40 minutes before going in and restrain people who are willing to help, just like seriously has me questioning all of that. I mean, it's like, okay, well, I mean, I think I said it before, but it's like at best, take 7 minutes for police to get here. If they don't hear that the shooter's down or he left over the 911 call, what are they going to do? Wait outside my house for 20 minutes to make sure the guy's, you know, armed or dead or everybody in the house is dead? I don't know. It just seems like completely ridiculous to me. I mean, and the
Yeah.
other
I mean, it's,
thing that just, yeah,
I mean, to give the listener some context, right? Like, how a call happens, right? Again, it depends on your locality, right? Like, every locality is different. Some localities might just have a person taking calls for both fire, police, and medical, and some have it split up. But either way, they're just sitting on the phone with you taking information. That's all they're doing. You know, like, sometimes they're passing off that information to a because again, it depends on the locality. You might have a call taker and you might have a dispatcher. Again, this all depends on the size of your city, town, so on and so forth. But again, it's like they're just sitting on the phone with you while things are happening. Again, you know, I'm coming from a place where, again, like, someone's being attacked and there's a person on the phone who's just like asking you questions, and it's like the average layperson is not necessarily going to be able to answer, give an entire description of a person calmly, you know, while they're being attacked by someone. And the fact that I think
let alone a 9-year-old. I mean, that was the thing that
a-
just like gutted me was like the
absolutely,
story of that one girl who like did the right thing. She called 911 and then the shooter saw her with a phone and shot her to death. It's just like, God. I mean, I mean, the thing with this shooting that just has really gotten to me is just the random nature of it. I mean, I hate to say it, but like Sandy Hook, it was like, okay, this kid is mentally disturbed. His mom's a teacher there. There's some sort of weird, twisted, almost like workplace violence connection. But here, it's just like he didn't even go to the elementary school, you know? I mean, it'd be one thing if he was like going after his peers at the high school who actually bullied him, but just like to go do that to innocent children is just, I can't understand it whatsoever.
yeah. I mean, so I'm gonna, again, I think the person definitely had mental health issues, and I don't want to make the person sound any like I think, let's talk about solutions, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I
So, like,
mean,
yeah, hold on. So, like, I don't want to make the person sound like, I don't want to make us feel bad for him, and I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or anything like that, right? But, like, the person came from a broken home. Like, again, if any of our people are listening, I mean, like, I heard Eric Adams today that they're trying to set up something in New York City about, um, oh, we're trying to, counter it. We're gonna put cops everywhere. It's like, and he's like, well, Pete, this doesn't start at the home. It actually does. All this stuff starts at home. Like, when we look at, people who are involved, people who come from broken homes in general, like, one, there are higher rates of them being in a lower economic status, right? Two, higher rates in mental health issues. Both of those things, right? The lack of absence of a parent in the household. In many cases, right, it's like usually the father, right? A lack of a father in the household. All those three things, among other things, right, have been, again, because data is not singular. It's like it's multifactorial data, right? When we're looking at the multivariant data, excuse me, right? Those are things that contribute to people being in those situations, from people who committed those acts of atrocity, right? And people who are involved in inner city shootings. It's like, but again, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, where many of these politicians have a certain agenda. I mean, I'm sure they know this. Like, it is, again, I'm not a politician, but I think that they're supposed to look at a wide variety of information. You know, there should be some sort of process where everyone's looking at all this information and making an educated decision, but it just doesn't seem that way. Like, I mean, if they really wanted, again, like if they really wanted to um, fix the problem, like it does, a lot of these things happen from the home. Like
Yeah, I mean, it's like the home slash. I mean, I know everybody else leans like a little bit more conservative, but like the lack of universal health care, including mental health care, is kind of, I mean, a big cause of this, in my opinion, because there's a stigma around getting mental health treatment, and it's expensive, and people don't have access to it because they don't have, a good, solid health insurance system. And state mental hospitals were defunded under Reagan, first starting in California, and then, basically after the 1980 election. And there's just like, there's nowhere to send somebody who's completely mentally ill. I mean, like, I'm not saying we need to go back to a one flew over the cuckoo's nest system of, you know, insane asylums run by Nurse Ratchet, but, there needs to be some kind of a way to, if you see that your kid is completely mentally disturbed and is a danger to himself or others, I'm sorry, institutionalize them. At least didn't give them a chance to get better
well,
and take them
here's
out of society and put them in
well
somewhere where
here
they
well
can get
here's the
mental
thing.
health treatment
Well,
rather than
well,
jail.
well, Scott, here's the thing though. Like, I mean, there are certain things like HIPAA laws and stuff. Like, you can't, like, if the person is able
I
to
mean,
function.
question though, I mean, would you rather have your AR-15 banned or, violate somebody's HIPAA law?
Well, here's the thing though. Like, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate now. Like, you're saying that, but like, what stops the government from passing a law to break? You know what I mean? Like, uh, it could work both ways. Like, they can turn around and just say, well, you're crazy because you think a certain way. You know. So
Yeah, I mean, well, due process. I mean, obviously, that's like the bedrock of the system. I mean, I would,
well, here's the thing though,
there's
right?
just
Like,
like,
we're
I mean, there
talking.
used to be a safety net in place for this kind of a thing where,
Well, there's still,
yes, it
but
was
Scott,
probably
see, the thing
abused,
is,
but
Scott.
it's not there now.
Well, the thing is, Scott, it is, there is a safety net, right? Like, I can speak from experience, right? For someone who was on government assistance health insurance, right? In a major, I won't say where I am. I'm in a major metropolitan city, right? Um, you know, it was, that was covered under the insurance. So again, I don't
Well,
know
yeah,
this.
but I mean, if
Wait,
you're
hold
if
on.
you're a crazy person, like no one can involuntarily commit you, is the thing.
Right, but
You
here's the
know,
thing, though. But Scott, he was already flagged for these things. Like, they're not talking about whether he was in therapy. Like, we obviously don't know how much money his family, had, and whether he had access to insurance. Like, again, those are the types of questions that people should be asking, right? So again, like, again, like, I think,
well, I mean, I guess again, what I'm saying is that usually these types of people only get the mental health care they need after they've committed a crime.
well,
Like,
then it go.
I mean, I'll give you a really good example of this. Like, I mean, nobody talks about it anymore, but like a year or so before Columbine, there was an incident in Springfield, Oregon, which was like, 45 minutes away from where I grew up. This kid named Kip Kinkle basically kicked off, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, the whole like recent mass shooter movement. He was clearly mentally disturbed, and he's basically in a mental institution for the rest of his life after he shot his parents and then classmates at his middle school. And clearly mentally disturbed individual. Now he's like getting all the mental health care he needs, whereas like there were warning signs ahead of time that I mean, in my mind, should have just like made him get, better to lock him up before.
Yeah, I mean, all right, guys. It seems like we are having technical difficulties.
They're after us. It's the feds. They're coming to shut us down.
Hey, well, you can edit that out.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess, we've been doing this for about an hour now, so I guess we can leave it here. Any final thoughts? Nope. I think we may have lost audio for TS, but yeah. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I
I'm sorry.
guess
Sorry about that.
you're
Yeah, no,
back.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I muted my mic. I think the best thing to do, I think again, like, you know, like looking back, like, right, what could be done? I think what really could be done, and I mean, honestly, I think people they don't even need to pass laws. I mean, we could talk about health insurance,
Oh
universal
yeah.
health care, this and that. I mean, realistically speaking, it's just like it's not even like that difficult of a task, right? Like they really need to use the resources that they have because I think they many local governments do have the resources. All right, they definitely do. I mean, and this was even again, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, right? But this was a Democratic held locality, right? And a lot of the platforms that the Democrats run on are, healthcare and all these things, you know. So, what were they doing, right? I mean, they again, like, what were they doing? But they could have done so many things, right? They could have, but they didn't. You know, I mean, again, I think it's a combination of like, again, like, to kind of sum up everything, it's a combination of all the blurring signs that were ignored. Um, that really doesn't even require legislation. It's like just do your job, man. Like just do your job. That's really it. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah. I don't. I feel like I'm just going on a rant right now, but that's.
You and me both. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's sad because I mean it's like Walk the Talk America said. I mean it's like everybody on the left says it's a gun issue, everybody on the right says it's a mental health issue, and no one's like able to tone down the rhetoric enough to like meet somewhere in the middle and come up with a solution that might actually work because they're
Right, but I
too
mean,
entrenched on both of they're too dug in on their positions on either side. Then it's like nothing
but
gets done. Where I mean, it
absolutely.
doesn't have to be a new law, but adequate funding would be a start. So,
Well, I mean, Scott, here's the thing, though. So again, as a former first responder, like I was saying, the biggest thing is like if that was posted online and people did report it. Again, we don't know if they did, but if it was posted online, first responders should have been sent to that person's location, no questions asked. That is, and these people are funded. It shouldn't even be a question about funding because they were there. They interacted with him. They chased him, and there was a police chase, and they were shooting back and forth. There's adequate funding. It really comes down to, I think, people just weren't doing their job. I think that's what it really comes down to. Like,
yeah, I know. I mean, it's just like I mean, the mechanisms are there to catch somebody like this, but it's like okay, if you don't report it to whatever mechanism there is to make sure that this person shows up as a nutcase on the Nix database, that's not doing your job.
no.
It's like
So
the
I think
system's in place, and it's like there's a background check system in every state, pretty much. I mean, even Texas, everyone likes to assume that there's no laws whatsoever in Texas, but it's like, oh, you do have to pass a federal background check to buy a
Yep.
firearm.
For those
But
not familiar,
if he's not on the
with
list, how does it happen?
all right, so for those not familiar with background checks in the U.S., you need to fill out a 4473 to purchase a gun. Just saying, it's not, you can't just click a button online. A lot of misconceptions out there. You must fill out a 4473.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did he lie on that? We don't know.
Yeah,
those are questions as well that we need to be asking. But again,
that's what I'm saying. It's like, because it's like, well, I mean, the 4479. It's like, there's a bunch of questions, and like every time I read that, it's like, okay, if I were a terrorist, would I actually admit to any of this? Obviously not. If you really want to buy a gun, it's easy to lie on the form, but it's like there should be something when it's like, okay, this person needs to provide their driver's license or their passport.
Right, it should have came up.
Of ID, it should have come up,
For sure. Yeah. So again, like we have the failure of like the mixed check, right? So that's the ATF. They fucked up. And then you have
the local works, but
the local 911. The first quote unquote first responders, they fucked up. People at the school fucked up. That's 3 fuck ups.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know what, Scott, I really don't even think.
And then there's,
at this point, I think it's just negligence. This is just straight negligence. I don't even think we can really. I think what we could say is, for people, if you know anyone who's going through some trouble, anyone of your family members, I think you can drop a link in the pod and the description for Walk the Talk America. I mean, they're doing some great work. Fantastic. We can definitely, I think that's what we can do, right? Like, and we can continue to advocate for people. Listen, if you're having any crazy thoughts, well, not crazy thoughts, right? Like if you're having thoughts that are just not right, and you want to talk to someone, please do it. Like, don't be ashamed. Like, we're not demonizing people who have mental health issues. We're not. We just, we're not. Like, but please, like, either. And if you see anyone posting anything online like this, just reach out, call 911. As silly and as petty as you might think it might be, if someone's making a threat online, call 911. Like, do your part, But I think in this case, like in this past, at least in the past 2-3 weeks, right? Both those things, like there was just negligence. I don't want to harp on that too much. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it even goes down to negligence of the tech platforms too, to a certain extent, because it's like, okay, apparently he was in the same Discord channel as the the shooter in Buffalo. Like, what obligation does Discord have to be, like, I don't know, maybe using AI to look for certain keywords and then follow that up with a peer review from a human to see, oh yeah, okay, these guys are actually doing something and sharing documents. I mean,
right, but
it's like,
but Scott, that even goes back to
it's happening anyway with the Patriot Act. So like, why not harness that for good? Well, that's happening anyway.
Again, these are questions that, again, we're tippy-toeing on some.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, like, you're not wrong. I mean, but my thing is, again, like, former law enforcement was in that chat. Federal law enforcement isn't that say? I didn't even know. Like, you just mentioned it. So you're saying this former law enforcement was in the chat with both of these guys. Like, that's already like just, and he didn't say anything. Come on. That is just disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, again, I don't know. Things are just, yeah. I think we should just like wrap it up, because there's not much.
It's a weird one. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to solve this on a podcast, but our door is always open. I mean, if we're working on things like this, it's, I don't know what the fuck the answer is, honestly. I mean, it's not taking away the rights of responsible gun owners.
I think we need to start out like, maybe we need to start out, what? Let's actually, all the money that they're wasting, let's actually use what's in place, because clearly if people were doing their jobs, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the meme, like that guy who's touching his forehead. He's like, if everyone washes the dishes, there wouldn't be any dishes to wash. You know, like, well,
Or like the
if
Drake
everyone would,
one.
huh?
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a different. I'm thinking of the Drake one where he's like,
No,
you know,
there's
that
another.
sort of thing.
He looks like Eddie Murphy, but basically it's
Okay.
like, if everyone did their job, there wouldn't be a mess to do. For one person to clean. And again, like, if everyone did their job right, like they were supposed to, this wouldn't have happened. And I think like there's no like, with anyone with who has logic, who like again, like we're not experts in the field, right, of what all these people were doing. Like, yes, I'm a former first responder, but like every locality is different. But still, like there are things that were shown that like people messed up at multiple levels. Like people just need to do their jobs, man. Like if you don't like what you're doing, just leave, because look what happened. It's like all these people didn't
Yeah.
drink their coffee today. It's like it just
I mean, I heard a rumor too that a couple of cops who had their kids at the school ran in and got them out, while
I
the rest
I
of them
might
were
have heard
waiting
that
around
as
for
well.
40 minutes. I don't know if it's corroborated or not there, but I mean, it was on Twitter,
Yeah, who knows what to
and I
believe
think it was
anymore.
a credible source too reporting on it too. I think it was like NPR or CNN, something
I
like
mean,
that.
if
But
that's the case, that's really
crazy.
disgusting.
Yeah,
That's really disgusting. I
absolutely
mean,
disgusting.
yeah, but
But I mean, it goes back to the what we were talking about at the start of the show. I mean, cops, unfortunately, and the Supreme Court has found this, they have no obligation to actually protect you. So it's you do have to be your own first responder.
1000%, Scott, 1000%. So if there's anyone who, whether you're Asian or I know all the Asian faces are not on tonight, or there was one, but he had to go.
Well, there was 50%
Yeah,
of one if you saw my daughter wandering around in the background. So
yeah,
that
we saw
kind of
her. Yeah, yeah,
yep.
I saw her. Yeah, she was just like peeking in. But like, I mean, like that's serious. Like, if you're on the fence, I know you guys, AAPI Go, can help people do CCWs and all this other stuff. Like, if there's anyone out there who's on the fence, like just do it. Like, there's really like it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I mean, and this goes with so many things, but especially with self-defense. Again, like Scott, I'll tell your viewers, I can't tell you how many times I've been on the phone with females who were screaming, crying,
Yeah.
begging for the police to get there. When and you've heard this. Like, I'm not trying to. It's not fear mongering. I mean, the stats are there. You look at any major.
No, it is.
I mean, it hurts because there's nothing you can do about it. They're screaming. Their boyfriends
Well,
are trying to
there's
break into their cars. They're trying to break into their homes. They're angry. They're on drugs. They have a weapon. You know,
Well, and
they
if
have a
they're on their
knife.
drugs, where do you think they got their weapon? It wasn't at Cabela's. It was probably their drug dealer. Meanwhile,
Absolutely.
the
Whether it's a
woman on the other
knife.
end of the line could have gone to, Bass Pro Shops, and she's got a 10-day waiting period because, when she's fearing for her life.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, listen, if you guys are on the fence, just please reach out. Either it's to them, to reach out to anyone, please. If you're on the fence, I think one thing that we can learn, right, is that this proves the point that first responders, like, well, let me take this. Let me rephrase that. I commend that BORTAC um, Border Patrol guy, who I think he was off duty. I commend him. He did what he was supposed to do, and he was off duty. All right. If I was off duty and I saw something like that, I would be doing the same thing. Right? Because again, it's how could you not? How could you not? You know? But if anything, I think this proves that, like, again, like I said before, you need to be your own first responder. These the paid first responders or even the volunteers, right? They are your backup. And if anything, I think that's the last thing that I'm going to say. Like, I really want to stress that to the listeners. Like, please, if you're on the fence, do it. Get the training. There's free videos online. There's there's so many resources online if you're tight with money, right? But just please get that training.
Which coincidentally, shameless plug, if you do speak Korean, Mandarin, Chinese, Vietnamese, etc., we really want to work on, potentially like creating our own content for safety videos or subtitling or translating those into multiple different languages. So if you're listening and you have those language skills, definitely drop us a line, info@aapigo.net, or follow us on social media. Any of our channels, we'll link to them in the podcast notes section and everything. Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, this is kind of probably a good place to leave it.
Yeah.
I'm pissed. You're pissed. Everybody's pissed that this happened. We all want to find a solution, and it's a tough one.
Yeah. All right, Scott. Take it easy. It was a decent episode.
Yep. That was a good one. But thanks everyone who is listening. We have one person following us on the live stream, oddly enough, so I don't know if that's you, but if somebody is listening live, thanks for doing that. This has been the AAPI Go podcast, and
no, it's just me and you.
See you next time.
Just me and you, I think.
Just you and me. Okay. Well, I can pretend that we have a vast YouTube audience of one watching us. I can dream. All right.
Yeah. Eventually,
Take it easy, everyone.
You're gonna edit some of the stuff out, right? Some of the weird parts.
No.
You're not?
No. Why would I edit it? It's great. Raw emotion.
All right.
Get it out there in the ether. We're good.
All right. Later, man.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.